Welcome, everybody. That's great. There's more people coming in, but we can start whenever we are ready. It looks like a few more people are coming in. And Julia is
Oh,
going to start us off.
should I wait till 4:01?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
I mean, I'm ready. All right. All right, I guess we should start this party. Let's do this. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are presenting, we're a bunch of different teacher librarians from San Francisco Unified, as you can see on our slide here. And we just kind of wanted to showcase some of the work that's been happening across our libraries, some in connection with each other and some separate. So pre-COVID, right, we had very vibrant libraries that provided safe spaces for students that were really different from their classroom. And so we started our school year kind of feeling discouraged about ways to hold on to that space and reach our students. SFUSD is very fortunate to have a full-time teacher librarian at all the middle schools and all the high schools, and our elementary librarians generally work at 2 schools. And so because of that, we wanted to really leverage that opportunity. One of the few things we realized is that distance learning, of course, gave us the opportunity to work across schools. So we're able to collaborate a lot more. And what we used kind of what we knew, and we transferred a lot of that into digital spaces. So this panel is going to show the ways that we were able to do that. And I am going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat so that we have that, because that's always important. There's a tiny URL down there too, just in case. And again, my name is Julia Maynard. I'm going to be your kind of MC for the combo today. I'm the teacher librarian at Willie Bell Middle School, and there's a bunch of ways to get a hold of me. Not super active on TikTok, but I got Tech Talk Teacher, so I just want to showcase that I got a cool name. All right, so presentation logistics. We are going to have time for a Q&A after, and so we'll do our best to answer questions in the chat, but definitely hold on to them, and we'll get to you at the end because we have a lot of great stuff we want to get through that's timed very closely. And first up is Lisa Bishop. Go for it, Lisa.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lisa Bishop. I'm the teacher librarian at Aptos Middle School. My contact information is right there. I love learning. I am excited to be here with my colleagues and that we have this incredible opportunity in California to collaborate with one another, and the possibilities are quite endless when we can just send a link across our district to another school librarian and say, do you have any students that want to do this with me? And we can send them a link, and that student can come join you at your middle school, I can send one of my students to their middle school, can do cool things at the other middle school during distance learning. Really fantastic. Let's see, and I can't find any of my photographs of my my school library. Like, I have them on my school library computer, so I didn't connect them to my home computer. So I'm sorry you don't see my library, but I miss it very much. The cool thing that I've been doing this past year that I want to share with you is called Aloud in the Library. And Julie, if you want to go to the next slide. I've been reading with kids every single day since April last. And Marcy, the public librarian, the teen librarian from our local branch library near my school, and I collaborated. Every Friday she would come in and she would bring really cool stories and read to the students on the carpet, and they would bring their lunches in and she would read just really fantastic stories. She's in theater and she's wonderful. And when COVID started, I just started the Aloud in the Library program with the after school program. Since I worked for the Beacon program, I started reading with kids after school using Hoopla Digital. So right here, you'll see there's lesson plans. Let's see if I can show Julia, maybe you can drop the lesson plan ideas in the chat, but they have access to this slideshow, so you'll be able to see it. But if you want to see how to do it, you basically, have access to either Sora or Hoopla Digital. We use our public library almost exclusively right now during COVID distancing time. So I was a big audiobook person. We used a lot of playaways with our in our school library. Have a large collection of playaways, and research shows that if you have a student reading a book and listening to a book at the same time, that their reading gets accelerated. And we found that research in my school. I researched with one of my teachers that I collaborated with, and she and I weren't certain the research was true for us. So we did a years long research, and we found that it was even more so. It was more so true for us that students were being accelerated in their reading. So many of our students who are learning English as a second language just found that the light bulbs went off when they paired a book with an audiobook. So a lot of times, school program, what I do is we read a chapter from one of the books that we're reading, and then we listen to a chapter, and then we read a chapter, and we go. And it just depends on the day with the kids too, and their moods. It's not always perfect, but it depends on who shows up, because not every day the same kids show up. So you have to be really flexible. Like if you're reading, like right now, reading Ellen O's Spirit Hunters, and they come every single day for that book. So there's not a kid that misses that story. So it's so engaging, right? They didn't miss New Kid when we read Jerry Craft's New Kid, and reading a graphic novel is phenomenal. It's just fantastic with the kids, and pictures are wonderful on the screen, and you don't have to have your cameras on. Pressure to have your cameras on. Great way to have your cameras off, and then everybody's just reading and learning new words. We have a digital notebook that they can use to keep their new vocabulary words. Or I show them my book that I use every single day. You know, I write my words in my notebook every day, the new words that I'm learning from the story that we're reading, and we discuss them. They love it. And it's so cool because if you get like something in Ellen O's book the other day, it was the black lacquered jewelry, and they weren't sure what that was. So we just went up into Google and great images of black lacquered Korean jewelry boxes. And they were like, oh, my grandma has one of those. And oh, my grandma has one of those. And it was a great way to, you know, we were talking about the Gothic house of Washington, D.C. So we looked up Gothic houses for a second. And that gave them so many cool images. I just wanted to say that this has been one of the greatest ways to stay connected at the grassroots level with kids, because a lot of times the teachers don't have enough time for me to come into their classroom. I'll go in and hang out. I can do breakout rooms with them, but it's not the same. And just being with the kids every single day, reading with them, and using Hoopla Digital and using the cursor, it's just been fantastic. And if I had the kids here today, they would be telling you how much they love it and how much their reading scores have gone up. They would tell you that. And they would also say, be flexible and, you know, do the norms so that it feels safe. There's always read aloud norms, so that when you first start out with students, you have norms that you make it a really safe space for them, so that nobody makes fun of their reading. And I'm the only one that will correct them in their reading. And they love being corrected now, because we always say, English is so weird. Yeah, it is weird. And we don't know how to say a lot of the words. So I'm just so proud to bring this to you. And if you don't know a way to read with kids, read with them using Hoopla Digital, and share your screen, and they can share an audiobook and you can share the ebook. And it's super, super exciting to be with kids every single day reading with them. Yes, I will give you the research. I'll find my research and put it in the chat for you.
All right. Hello, I'm Emily McManus. I'm the teacher librarian at Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School. When distance learning started and our physical libraries closed, like Lisa was saying, San Francisco teacher librarians worked with our public librarians to provide all students library cards to be able to access the online resources. Our public library is blessed with an abundance of materials, but sometimes having so many materials made it really hard for our students to find the book they were looking for, and it overwhelmed them. With coordination and implementation from our school district's library leadership with Brad Williston, all the teacher librarians contributed curated lists to a central website to make finding the just right book easier. The lists have themes across grade levels, like Black fantasy, stories about video games, girl power with novels and verse, and survival stories, just to name a few. And many of these lists were inspired by incorporating student voice and suggestions when choosing themes. Next slide. And so these are just some of the activities that we've done together over this last distance learning period. Next slide, please. Without the physical books for students to browse, we tried to make creative ways for students to discover new books in formats that are fun and engaging. All of the activities I'm sharing are available in this slideshow for you to copy and adapt for your own students. One of the few upsides of distance learning was how much easier it was to collaborate with teacher librarians district-wide. For instance, teacher librarian Holly Friel and I made a hoopla bingo challenge to encourage students to work in small teams in breakout rooms, to explore what was available online, learn search features like filtering, sorting, and searching by category that the kids don't always get right away, to entice those students who haven't really used the online library yet because they assume there isn't anything fun by searching for things like just how many Diary of a Wimpy Kid books and audiobooks are available. And the answer for SFPL is 37, which delighted a lot of my students. And most importantly, we wanted students to talk with each other about books with questions like, what is the funniest or scariest book you can find on Hoopla? Next slide, please. Another game we made to engage students with new books is Two Truths and a Lie. And it was inspired by a game shared by our moderator today, the awesome Julia Maynard. It can be hard to get to know the students over Zoom, especially our new coming 6th grade students. And the students loved learning the rules to this game by practicing with sharing 2 facts and 1 lie from their own lives and guessing each other's. I did this with a Halloween theme, but it could be adapted for really any theme, whether a holiday or unit in collaboration with the subject teacher. Students chose books from a creepy, scary nonfiction book list, like those ones I mentioned that we all collaborated on, about bugs, monsters, and ghostly phenomena. Then they found 3 facts and changed 1 enough that became a lie. They shared their slides with other students who then tried to guess which fact was made up. And students loved challenging each other and competing for who could make up the trickiest lie. It was also a really great opportunity to introduce or review concepts about the difference between paraphrasing and plagiarism when students write their facts to share what they found in their books, distinguishing facts from fallacies, and creating citations to share where they found their facts. Next slide, please. To make finding a new book more fun and engaging than just the list of books, I've been experimenting with interactive slide templates and Google Slide tools. There are lots of creative templates available for free on sites like the ones I use, like Slides Mania or Slide Carnival, to gamify browsing and choosing books. For Valentine's Day, I used a Sweet Reads theme, and students can click on the chocolate in their own little slideshow, and each candy will take them to a different book. So I showed here how one of them pops out, and each of these candies takes them to a different one. And on each page with the book, they can read a brief summary, watch a book trailer, or click on the book cover to check it out online right away. And one of the cool things about a lot of these online book services, like Hoopla, that our district has been using a lot, is that students can get the same book if they want to. So there's no more stressing about planning an amazing book talk and having 30 hands shoot up to check out the one available copy. I had a bunch of students asking if they needed to keep choosing different chocolates because they found a book they liked and wanted to start reading right away. After they browsed and hopefully checked out a book, students work together in breakout rooms to discuss the books and share their responses on a Jamboard with the class, with questions like, which love story seems most tragic? Which book trailer made you want to learn more about the book and why? And for our anti-romance students, which are a whole lot of them in middle school, we had questions like, which romance seemed the cheesiest? If the characters in all the books had an epic battle to fight for true love, who is the fiercest and who would win? And the most popular one, if you could only read horror or romance for the rest of your life, which would you choose? And I had one student the other week reply, horror. He said, for sure I'll have nightmares for life and I'd be really paranoid, but at least it's better than having to read cheesy love stories that aren't real. One of my favorite parts of these lessons is hearing students enthusiastically defending their opinions about new books and characters. And I hope you have as much fun trying out these activities as my students and I have had. And now for our next presenter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mr. Yacobellis. I am the teacher librarian of Francisco Middle School, and I'm going to share what we've been doing together across the middle schools throughout the district with our Battle of the Books competition. You may have heard of Battle of the Books. There is kind of a known Battle of the Books, but we've kind of taken our own spin on it. In a traditional Battle of the Books, often a book is crowned the champion as people read a selection of books. And in ours, we're doing more of a competitive reading challenge that is a collaborative trivia competition. So as students read, they submit questions, and we're going to have a quiz show at the end, and we'll crown a school or a group of students the Battle of the Books champions as opposed to a book. So we've adapted it to our own needs. And I'm going to share with you just kind of the first introduction to the battle that we gave to students. So if you could hit the next slide and press play for us.
Are you ready to rumble? It's the Battle of the Books 2020. Click on any book cover on the shelf to access the ebook, or the headphones to get the audio version. Read as many books as you can throughout the year, and we'll have a competition to see which school will win the Battle of the Books 2020. Sign up on the clipboard below so that we know you're participating, and we'll have lots of activities along the way. Have fun reading, everyone.
So we use this slide to promote the battle to students. We would share this out through our various avenues online, whether it's Google Classroom or to English teachers who would share it, or through after-school programs. And this is sort of our central hub where students could see all of the books. They could sign up to let us know that they were competing. And with our book selection there, you can see it says Hoopla at the top. As Emily mentioned and Lisa mentioned before, we've been really leveraging our partnership with the public library here to use Hoopla, so that every student can have free access to all the ebooks, and there's unlimited copies. So we really wanted to use Hoopla so our students could be reading them all at the same time. We tried to pick a diversity of books with diverse characters and a diverse set of authors and a diverse set of genres and formats. So we have lots of different genres represented here, and we tried to pair audiobooks with ebooks. Some of our books are audio only, and a few of our books only had the ebook version. But we felt it was important to have a variety of different genres, character backgrounds, author backgrounds, and formats. On the next slide, I'll give a little background on how we put this all together. If we could get the next slide there, thank you. So Lisa mentioned we're very lucky in San Francisco to have almost every school with a teacher librarian. And so the middle school group, it might be the best group, I'm not sure, but I'll argue that we're the best group. And we came together to reproduce the Battle of the Books, which did take place last year amongst a few schools, but we wanted to broaden it and widen it out and adapt it for distance learning. Last year, it started off in person, and of course, by the end of the year, they had to adapt and make the battle virtual. But we had to go all virtual this year, so we had to think about how would we, if we're not going to be able to pass books out to students in person, how are we going to get students the books? And if we can't meet with our students regularly at school, where are we going to find an online place to get them together to participate and stay engaged and to make connections? So our working group came together. We thought Seesaw would be a good platform, good meeting space, because we can create activities, design activities to keep students engaged, where they can post what they're reading, they can post their progress, and they can share what they liked about specific books. And again, Hoopla, we used Hoopla as our curation source. So we each contributed about 3 or 4 or 5 books to make a list of 40. And with each book that we suggested, we said which genre it was from and what the diversity of characters or authors might be. And we used that to kind of whittle it down to 12 books. So through our collaboration and our teamwork, I'm here speaking about it, but this is a very large group of teacher librarians who've come together to put this all together to make this magic work. So through that, we curated books, made activities, and made that slide to roll it out. So if we could see the next slide, please.
Omar, keep going.
So running the battle then takes a little bit of more work. So that first slide where it said, "Are you ready to rumble?" That's where we get kids to sign up. Then once they sign up, we have their email. We enroll them in Seesaw, in our platform. And in Seesaw, there's the first activity for them to select a book and say why they want to read that book. And then they read it and they give us a question. They come up with questions with the answers and submit them after they read a book, which creates our question bank for the end competition. and also lets us say, okay, we knew they read the book, we send them a badge. Each book has its own badge that they then paste back into Seesaw, and I'll show you a couple of these activities in a moment, but they paste it into Seesaw, which allows them to track the books they've read and kind of give them bragging rights for how many they've done. And then we're asking them, when we deliver them the badge, to go ahead and post a collage about the book, a visual collage that kind of encourages other students to read that same book. It's going to be battle time, and throughout all of this, communication is key. Communication has been a challenge. Getting kids to stay up with it has been hard, but it's been a great challenge and something that we've taken on together. And the battle last year, as I mentioned, was virtual. It was done through a couple of rounds of Google Forms where students went into breakouts by school, and they worked together to answer as many questions correctly as possible to crown the Battle of the Books champion. Next slide, please. This is going to show a couple of our student activities in Seesaw, what they've made. So the top left shows the first picture book, first book pick rather. They show a picture of the book with a little blurb on why they chose that. And we included a random spinner that they could select a book at random if they were having a hard time choosing. You'll see down below a couple of versions of badge rooms. We kind of gave them a template with some different objects to make their own kind of Bitmoji room to paste their badges. And then at the top right, you'll see one of those book collages. After they read the book, they said something and put some pictures together to try and encourage other kids through Seesaw to read. Last slide for me, please. We have a few takeaways for you, a few links of things that we've created, some of the student-facing things, a promotion slide, which you haven't seen, that kind of gets students to sign up, that we spread through our various communication channels. There's a battle website, which we haven't shown, but it has some of the things you did see around the book selection slide and sign-up forms that we use. And there's also the Seesaw. Some of our Seesaw activities are linked there that if you're using Seesaw, you can copy directly and use those. There's also the book curation list if you want to see the 40 books we started with, and a blank template if you want to kind of use it to track the genre and diversity of the books that you're curating. And then the last few things there are just the badges we created for each book, the badge tracker if you want to see kind of what that looks like. We get an email from people and we just use that to kind of track if we sent it off. And then finally, a few email templates for when someone signs up or for when we send someone a badge. We can use those just to send it off quickly and lessen our work each time. And with that, of course, we'll take questions at the end. So I'll pass it off to my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Rachel Clouse, and I'm the teacher librarian at Roosevelt Middle School. I've been there about 7 years.
And I'm Heather Rothaus. I'm the teacher librarian at Hoover Middle School.
We wanted to talk to you about some clubs that we're running that Heather and I are doing together. Pre-pandemic, our brick and mortar libraries were full of not just books, but also games, puzzles, building toys, and maker spaces and projects. We miss all of that very much. And when distance learning started last year, we were really challenged to think of ways to try to create new spaces online in a way that could honor the creativity and the fun that happens in our libraries. Obviously, we can't do that fully on Zoom, but we have had some success with a couple of library clubs that we'll tell you about. Good. Next slide, please.
So in addition to our separate programming, we started 2 weekly clubs, a craft club and a games club. These clubs run after school since that ended up being best for the students and our differing site schedules. Much as we would have done at our sites, we reached out to counselors and teachers for student referrals and made digital flyers that we posted in our advisory classrooms, our grade level Google classrooms, and then the family newsletters. You know, communication and distance learning isn't easy, but we try to be consistent with our messaging. I will say that collaborating has been the key to our club's success. I'm sure many of you know that surrealness of having a one-sided conversation with a chat screen. And so our banter together, even if we are the only voices in the room, creates a relaxed environment for everyone. Co-teaching also really lightens the load. One of us can plan the warm-up, the other one the main activity, and it also makes us feel more comfortable running breakout rooms. We also encourage our students to take on leadership roles with different activities. We've had students run our openers or suggest different games and lead them.
As teacher librarians, we are fully taking advantage of the fact that we don't have a set curriculum in our schools. So we get to design our own activities, which can be hard, but it's also kind of fun. We do a lot of experimenting. Heather and I are combining small groups from our two middle schools, but now we have kids from 4 different middle schools joining us because students wanted to invite their friend from a different school. And now we have some siblings who wanted to join from elementary school, and we are inviting everyone to join. It feels very welcoming. The space has become very welcoming, and that's made it really nice as well. Sometimes we have guests come in, guest teachers or teacher librarians pop in, and that's also been nice to have some more adults visiting. We try to create like no pressure to participate. Some students just stop by and hang out. Others are really dedicated and come every week. Either way, it's fine. Heather's going to tell you a little more specifically about our craft club, and then I'll explain a little bit about our games club. Next slide, please.
There it is. This slide kind of gives you a sense of what we've been up to in the craft club. In my regular library space, I run a monthly craft day at lunch. I put the supplies out on the table and I pair a Chromebook that has links to tutorials. And my students will sit around chatting, eating, making, with the focus being really about the process and not the product. So to create this space virtually, we rely really heavily on the power of the document camera. And you can see an example of that on the right side of the slide. We spotlight the camera while we're doing the activity. And this allows the students to focus on the craft and not on each other. We rarely make a finished product before the class, instead kind of choosing for that imperfection of being live. It doesn't always go right, and that's part of the fun. We are fortunate to have received funding, so we are able to send our students a supply box, but the timing is never perfect, and we have spent many sessions using supplies that can be found around the house. As you can see in the upper left, I try real hard to create a clear visual of the supplies that students should gather, and then step back and admire the places that their creativity goes. One of my noticings in this distance learning craft club is I feel like our students have become more creative because they cannot see each other's work until the end. And that truly is the best part of the class for me, is the reveal. So they'll turn on their cameras and they'll hold their artwork up over the camera so you can't see them. And then they'll peek out from underneath their artwork so they can see what everyone else made. It's very cute. So there are a few other things on the slide that I want to point out. That zine in the middle was just sent to us by one of our students, highlighting her favorite activities that we've done this year. And on the bottom right-hand corner, there are 3 different versions of our recent Zentangle project. And finally, on the left corner is 3 versions of our mini diorama project. Just super fun to see what students have done with their creativity. Now on to Rachel.
And next slide, please. For our games club, we decided at the very beginning that we were not going to use video games. We took on the challenge of trying to adapt physical board games to work on Zoom. And we were lucky, we both had libraries that were really full of games beforehand. So we took those out of our libraries and brought them home. We are also using games that we had at home. We use our own children to help facilitate some of the games. We were kind of shameless like that. And that's been actually like kind of part of the experimentation, is trying out a lot of different things. On this slide, you can see some of the examples. So in the top left corner is a game called Score 4, which is a kind of 3-dimensional Connect 4 game. Over in the right top corner is a adapted like concentration game. And you can see I've put like letters on the tops of the cards. So students, it's under the document camera, and students can take turns calling out the pairs of cards that they want flipped over. Below that in the bottom right corner is a Google slide showing a student hand of apples to apples cards. So this is one way we've been able to adapt some card games is by giving students, sharing a Google slide with them that has a hand on it. The little red dots can be moved onto cards that they've already played. And then over on the right corner, the right bottom corner, is the document camera with Mastermind underneath it. Let's see. So some of the games work better than others, you can imagine, but we can show full boards under the document camera, and then the slides work okay for certain other types of adaptations. We have students take turns. They use the chat feature in Zoom a lot for this. And sometimes we're able to put them in different breakout rooms if they want to play different games with a smaller group. And it's great to have 2 teachers because we can kind of more easily facilitate that. So even though our games club has been a little it's less perfect than video games, for sure, it's more clumsy, but we feel like our adapted games have really prompted conversation between our students and create a lot of interaction. Also, since we work with students who are under age 13, we don't like the idea of suggesting that they download apps, even like free apps. Also, most of our students are using school devices, so a lot of the game platforms are restricted by the school district. And we also didn't want to make the assumption that everybody had an extra device, a phone or an extra computer to be able to use. So part of our choice about this was just about equity. We also didn't like ads that show up in free platforms, and have some concerns about privacy if students are setting up accounts and things like that. So for example, one game that is great is Code Names. Some of you might know this board game. And there's a great free online platform that works really well, but we prefer for our games club to sort of adapt the physical board. We try to give students as much choice as we can in selecting games. We've learned, one of the things we've learned that's been funny and surprising is that even silly games that might be sort of intended for younger students work really well in our games club, especially for warm-ups to get the group going. Next slide, please.
So we're going to leave you with this slide that has some tips and tricks of the things that we've learned while hosting and running our Zoom clubs. We do use a Google Classroom as our organizing space. We send weekly reminders, we post up the slide decks, we give inspiration, we put up videos for students to refer to later or if they've missed the club. We've also noticed that our students have begun posting their projects. So you can see these teddy bears on the left. So they put up what they finished, and then they go through and they compliment each other, and it's become just a really wonderful, positive space. They also post ideas for us and activities for us to do in the future. So it's become quite the community.
We hope that you'll all try out some clubs and other types of creative groups in your communities, especially if you're still in distance learning for a while longer, like we are. And thank you, and we'll pass along the mic to our colleague, Shannon.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for the pass off. I am Shannon Engelbrecht, but everybody just calls me Miss E. I'm the teacher librarian and the tech lead at AP Giannini Middle School. Next slide. So next slide. I want to talk about my approach to 21st century librarianship. Oh, sorry, can we head back one? I want to talk about my approach to 21st century librarianship, which felt especially relevant this year. Back in 2014, I got to hear our David Lankus talk about his approach to collection development at a closing keynote. And his theme was, the community is your collection. And listening to that keynote forever changed how I approached librarianship. And my focus shifted really to empowering students and empowering my staff. All right, next slide. So we use an iterative process for student empowerment through the library programs. The first part is to survey the students multiple times a year about what they like, what they're reading, playing, learning, what they like to do, especially now. We use a Google form. You can only fill it out once. It captures your email. And it has some suggestions in it, like, would you choose among these things based on previous programming? But it also just has a lot of open-ended space in it, which means that the data that we get from it is really big and bulky. And we really have to wrestle it and find ways of grouping it and making sense of it. And then we go back and connect with the students who said, I'm interested in coding or Scratch or Python or what have you. And we say, hey, would you all like to start a club? And so we approach it group by group. I work very collaboratively with our student government. They do their own surveys and we share information, and some stuff is more in the student council bailiwick and some is more in the library programming bailiwick. And so we just kind of, it's very fluid. And I'm also one of the adult supports for student government, so that makes it easy. And then we work with the students to plan the services and the clubs. We always ask at least a couple of students are actually a teacher on the Google Classroom for the club. The students produce all of the advertising material. The students are hosts in the meetings and run them. They develop the agendas and all of that. I am there to support them doing that. And I always say, look, just take a run at it. I'm not going to let you fall. I'm always going to backfill, I got you. Just take a shot, because part of what my hope is in this empowerment and in this time is not only are they having a lot of voice and saying, this is what we want to do and how we want to do it, but they're also working on all those life skills about how to work with other people and how to plan and how to lead and how to follow and how to be a good club member. So we plan all the services. And then, they develop their advertising, and I always help them think about what are all the different channels of communication in a school. It's not enough just to throw it in the student government announcements. You have to think about every channel and how you might adjust your materials for the channel. Is it going out to the PTSA outside the school? Maybe don't put the Zoom code in that one, and maybe put an adult's email rather than the kids' email, and things like that. And I'm always saying, if you think you've communicated enough, you haven't. You need to over communicate. People need to see something 3 or 4 times before they realize it's a real thing. And then we also work on monitoring who shows up, what's our attendance, what is the usage of the materials or the services or whatever we have planned, and what is the feedback. We're always trying to find ways to ask people for more feedback on projects. And then we adjust course monthly. We sunset some clubs part of the way through the year, we bring on others because we do multiple surveys. And so it's a very dynamic process. So over on the other side of the slide, you'll see there's a bunch of different things that I facilitate the students to do, whether it's developing their e-portfolios on Google Sites, and then, oh heck, by the way, you're learning how to make a website because it's the 21st century. In fact, we're 1/5 of the way through. Developing Hoopla bookshelves for whatever the theme of the month is. We have an art and lit zine. We actually have a speaker series coming in from UC Berkeley. We have a lunch clubs, after school clubs, student government, book clubs. A couple of things I did want to highlight is that I do also teach lessons on digital agency during the old normal. And we're trying to find ways of also making sure that this time students are really aware of their digital footprint and what they're sharing and all of that. Also, when I actually have money to buy books, we shift a large portion of it over to on-demand ordering, and we have a system where students can request books. So we get books every week, and students who request it get first priority. And then we do maker labs. That's now become our DIY club with stuff you can find around the house. So that's just some of the flavor of some of the stuff that I support the students doing. All right, last slide, please. And I also work with my staff to empower them. I survey them about their needs. In a normal year, I'd be focusing more on research lessons in digital citizenship. This year, definitely focusing more on developing those Hoopla Bitmoji libraries that are especially for our students who find Hoopla overwhelming or who have very, very specific interests and who maybe have more divergent reading levels. So we really try to customize their reading and engage them. And then I plan services with them, and again, advertise and over communicate. And in fact, I have a couple of students who are absolute Canva wizards, and they do a lot of my flyers for me because they're like, Missy, can we just redo this one for you? Like, okay, sure. Yeah, I hear you. And then monitoring usage and feedback, adjusting course monthly. So I push in and teach with our ELD team. I provide the first line of tech support. I'm on the team that's developing the social emotional curriculum for our new advisory. I'm teaching teachers how to use Google Sites and how to teach Google Sites. Of course, the customized Hoopla bookshelves for our neurofabulous students. I do a lot of family support, math innovation pilots to support where our math teachers want to go. And then I'm the union rep because I didn't run for it and I didn't ask, but I got voted. So my staff said that's what they needed from me. So good times, people, good times. So that's my whole spiel. Thanks so much for listening. And back over to Miss Maynard.
All right. Sorry. Awesome. So we have about 10 minutes. If anyone has questions for any of our amazing teacher librarians, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. And I know you guys are just flooded with questions because there's so much great information. So go ahead and use the raise your hand feature and we'll have you unmute and ask. You guys covered it. You guys said all the amazing things. So Valerie, go ahead.
When you're making the Hoopla digital bookshelves, you're doing it on Bitmoji?
Yeah, I do it on Bitmoji. We found that for our neurofabulous students that visual interaction was, they were able to navigate it more effectively. And it was just a simpler format, fewer words, bigger pictures.
Is it going to link to the book and to a trailer, or what's it going to link to when they click it?
It just takes them directly to the Hoopla book. They found it confusing to go to a trailer and then back to the bookshelf. So we tried to streamline it and make it very visually engaging and create the metaphor of you're with Miss E and we're in the library and we're looking at books. And then they were like, oh, right, got it.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question in the chat. There's a question in chat about how do you do on-demand orders, Shannon?
Well, we are super lucky in our district. We have amazing library leadership and they have set it up so that we actually have a relationship with a local small San Francisco book company, a bookstore company, but they're also book distributors. And so we can just, and they have this beautiful forum and they have a tracking system. I mean, yeah, go Brad. So I just reused a bunch of our old library request cards from the 1970s. And I just said, write the title, write the author's name, write your name, and then, instead of a signature, put your email. And then we just use those. And the kids will just come in and, I'll have kids requesting 20 and 30 books a week. And so the children build the collection. I backfill with, award winners and amazing things they might not have stumbled upon, but they build our collection.
Maybe some of our audience has ideas of things that they're doing that they can teach us too, if there are no more questions.
I see a hand up with Valerie Kincaid.
I think that was from before.
I'm sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
Can you imagine that happened in the real world? Just in there.
We would actually love to hear what ideas you have. We would love to hear what some of you all have been doing. We know you've been doing great things in your libraries too. So please give us some new inspiration for the spring. We're in distance learning for the whole spring.
Don't be shy, everybody. Come on, we can talk.
So this is usually the point when I'm in a club with students where if things get really quiet and we've already finished the agenda, we just whip out a Kahoot and start having a good time. And in all of my clubs, there's always that option of, if we're supposed to be planning the monthly newsletter or we're supposed to be doing something else and no one's in the mood, everyone has the right to pull the Kahoot lever and say, let's just laugh and have some fun, because that's what we need today. While everyone is thinking of their next question, I can share with you some of the effects of this approach to librarianship. We discovered actually that one of our 7th graders is a Kahoot master. And then we were doing some tech PD where we actually, teachers teaching teachers as part of our, about half of our staff meetings. And so a bunch of the teachers said, hey, could you have that kid come and teach us? Because he's better than you guys. And we were like, sure. So now he's on the teacher training PD planning team, and he comes to our meetings And then our student council president really had a lot of feedback he wanted to give us on how we were approaching distance learning. So now he is running the student site council. I'm sorry, the school site council. He keeps the agenda. He comes to a lot of the other meetings. And so it has had this effect of weaving the students into our student leadership, and they've become very fierce advocates for other students who are feeling very disconnected from school. And they have ideas that we wouldn't have thought of because they are digital natives and they are living this. So that's been fantastic.
Looks like Claudia has a question.
Really a comment. I just want to say thank you. You have so many great ideas. I use Hoopla every day myself. I love listening to audiobooks when I walk, but it never occurred to me to have my students use them. So I'm starting a book club with them, and I was trying to figure out, you know, I don't want the kids to have to buy the books, and I don't have enough copies for all the kids. And now I realize there's a graphic novel book club right on Hoopla. That's just fantastic. So thank you so much. This is really informative.
Yes, Melanie, there is curbside book pickup for students not in San Francisco Unified, but with our public library. We're not doing it in our school libraries yet, but the public library, we're promoting the public library.
And also a lot of the teacher librarians are working with those mobile sites to help provide assistance with that.
I'm just like really impressed with all of this programming, and we've been trying to kind of Melanie and I are, and I think Beth is in here as well, are all in Berkeley Unified, and we've been really trying to push for some kind of coordination around library cards with Berkeley Unified, which we don't have right now, like either using student ID, and we've been like doing a lot of work with signing students up with like e-cards in the beginning of during distance learning, and so thankful for Hoopla right now. It's such an amazing service and platform. But yeah, sorry to go back to this because you might have covered it. I think Lisa, you might have covered it in the beginning, but do students like receive a physical library card as well, or do they just have that number that they're using from their email? Okay, got it.
You know, I'll say too that the whole thing about all the students having library cards was years in the making. I mean, and we were really lucky at this moment because the collaboration had already happened. And so the students actually, like, all of this was in process way before the pandemic. It took a long time for the district, you know, and the library to connect and share their info so that this could happen. So it was super lucky at the time. So a lot of kids already had physical cards, but then those who didn't were emailed their number. So that was, it like filled in, luckily that like filled in all the gaps that we had. There's still like plenty of challenges. I mean, the kids lose their email. You can imagine elementary school. It's like, there are plenty of challenges, but it has been incredibly helpful. And the library just in the last few months has been just incredibly responsive to student requests. Like students can email and teacher librarians can email and be like, I forgot my password. Can you please reset it? And they just respond like that. So it's been a work in progress, and it's luckily at a good place right now.
Yeah, I would say overall, you know, what we're presenting has been years in the making. And I know whenever I hear a fantastic new idea from another librarian, I think, oh my gosh, how can I even do that? But, you know, part of this is just giving yourself permission to play the long game. Just do a piece this year and then build on it next year. When we first started trying to connect SFUSD and SFPL, Rachel was my older son's elementary librarian, and he is in his first year of college. So we have been playing a long game on a lot of this.
Any last minute thoughts or questions, ideas that we can steal?
I'm seeing in the chat that the Berkeley's Battle of the Books is quite different. Not to put anybody from Berkeley on the spot, but I'd be curious how it is run.
Melanie, you want to try?
I do it. You want to do that. It's okay. I guess I'm like more senior than you. I've been at the school for longer. Well, The way that we do it is we have a list of books that all the kids at the middle school, if they're in Battle of the Books, can read. So we do a trivia style sort of thing, but it is like a big event that we would host. So pre-pandemic, it was like we would do like divisionals. So we would have a site competition. So like for each of the grades, and then our 6th grade team, 7th grade team, and 8th grade team would go head to head with all the other middle schools, because we're just 3 middle schools in Berkeley. So we were able to coordinate in that way. And so so it is like a trivia style in the moment question. So it's not like a form, it's more like live. And when we did this last spring, it was like a Zoom scrimmage. So we did like the live competition, but over Zoom. My school won, so.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then we also have a t-shirt competition. So like the kids, they design their own t-shirts. And so we come in like in our warrior garb, like wearing our school colors and stuff. So yeah.
Would you invite us, Melanie, to observe what you guys do, and we could invite you to come see what we do, or something like that?
Definitely.
To learn from each other. That would be a really great way to collaborate across the Bay.
Yeah, and get more student involvement, because I feel like our challenge this year has been getting the engagement because of the virtualness of it, because that's what drew our students in the first place, was making friends, being able to eat lunch in the library. And now on Zoom, they're forced to just listen to me and they can't like play with each other. So I love all the ideas that we're getting from you to make our own Zoom meetings more engaging. So thank you.
We're struggling with that as well with our battle, like getting the kids to participate on Zoom. It's hard. It's really hard.
And that's why one of the things is that we could send them Zoom links to each other and have them come to our, something that we're doing in our library. Your kids could go over there to another library. It's not like we have these physical barriers where we can't drive over the other side of the city, or we can't get there because the bus isn't running. We just click on a link and we're transported right into a place where we want to be. So there's lots of possibilities. It's just amazing. It's almost time. I know that I don't think there's any more sessions after this, so there's nobody bumping up against us, but if anybody else has anything to say, we can stay a minute or two longer if you want to.
And thank you so much for making it to the very last session of the day on Friday. Oof, that's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. We weren't sure if anyone would show up.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And I was just texting Melanie and Beth and being like, we need to collaborate with the SFUSD librarians more, just because I think in terms of like resources and funding, y'all, we're so lucky to have. I think y'all are more on our or like on our level in terms of like what resources we have access to. And so we would love to like collaborate with you more as we do with our East Bay colleagues. So yeah.
And not to exclude anybody from the South, we love our Southern California librarians, and we love you so much wherever you are. We're not trying to be Bay Area snobs or anything. So don't worry, only it's the Dodgers that drive us crazy, but it's okay. It's all right. We're all good. Are we good? Everybody good? Have a TGIF?
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. See you soon. Stay safe.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.